Have you ever experienced a sense that the universe is pushing you away from people, opportunities, or paths you once believed were right? This feeling of isolation and profound loneliness is not a punishment or a sign that everything is working against you. Today we're going to explore a new perspective, a view that delves deep into our psyche and soul, offering a transformative way to understand these dark moments. We'll draw on the insights of Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychologist who devoted his life to uncovering the mysteries of the human mind. Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation as the most important journey in a human's life. This concept doesn't simply refer to personal growth or adapting to social expectations, but to a deep and complex inner journey whose goal is the wholeness of oneself. It is a path toward the integration and harmony of the various facets of our personality, both conscious and unconscious. However, this journey is not easy, and it often involves profound isolation and loneliness. It is no coincidence that many of us experience this sensation of loneliness or disconnection when we are in the midst of great internal changes. The process of individuation, according to Jung, is the key for a human being to become who they truly are. It is a transformation that goes beyond simply adapting to social norms or the expectations of others. Instead of conforming to the masks we wear to fit into different social roles, the process of individuation urges us to explore our most authentic essence. However, this essence is not always easy to discover or accept, as it is hidden beneath layers of social conditioning, imposed beliefs and parts of ourselves that we have preferred to ignore or repress. One of the most challenging aspects of the individuation process is the integration of what Jung called the shadow. The shadow represents those parts of our psyche that we have rejected or ignored, either because we consider them unacceptable or because they simply don't fit with the image we want to project to the world. These parts can include impulses, desires, fears, or traits we consider negative or shameful. However, Jung believed that the shadow is not inherently bad. It is simply unknown and, therefore, feared. For Jung, individuation is largely a process of reconciliation with our shadow. This involves recognizing, accepting, and ultimately integrating these dark parts of ourselves into our consciousness. This process is neither easy nor quick. It requires courage to face what we have been avoiding and to dismantle the defenses we have built to protect ourselves from these uncomfortable aspects of our psyche. This is where isolation plays a crucial role. Often, the individuation process cannot take place in the company of others, especially if we are surrounded by people who reinforce our masks and social expectations. To be able to hear the voices that whisper from within, we need to be alone, distanced from the external noise and the influences that distract us from our true nature. This isolation can be self-imposed, as in the case of those who choose to withdraw from the world for a time to seek answers within, or it can be an isolation that arises from life itself through circumstances that force us to be alone. This type of loneliness, though often painful, is essential for individuation. In silence and solitude, we are given the opportunity to confront our shadows without the distraction of the outside world. It is a time of deep introspection in which we can begin to untangle the threads of our lives and see clearly who we really are, beyond society's expectations and imposed roles. The process of individuation also involves a rebalancing of the psychic energies within us. Jung described the human psyche as composed of several polarities: conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, light and shadow. Individuation is in essence a process of reconciliation and harmonization of these polarities. When we integrate our shadow, we not only become more complete, but also release psychic energies that were previously repressed or blocked. This release of energy can lead to a greater sense of vitality, creativity, and authenticity. However, it is important to note that the individuation process is not linear, nor has a clear end. It is a continuous journey throughout life in which we keep discovering and rediscovering aspects of ourselves as we mature and face new challenges. The individuation process deepens and expands. In this sense, the isolation we experience at different moments in our lives is not a single event, but a recurring and necessary part of our psychological and spiritual development. Isolation is often misunderstood as punishment or a form of suffering, but in reality, it can be one of the most powerful paths to authenticity. The universe does not isolate you out of cruelty, but because it knows that to find your true self, you must shed external distractions. In our daily lives, we are constantly surrounded by stimuli, opinions, expectations, and noise that pull us away from our essence. This isolation, which may sometimes feel like a form of punishment, is actually a valuable opportunity for introspection and self-discovery. When the universe isolates you, it is giving you a direct invitation to look within yourself, to confront those parts of your being that you have avoided for so long. This can be a frightening experience at first, especially if you're not accustomed to solitude or being alone with your thoughts. In a world where external noise and constant distractions have become the norm, silence and solitude can feel uncomfortable, even discouraging. However, it is precisely in those moments of silence and isolation that the deepest truth of who you really are is revealed. Imagine you're in the middle of a dark forest with no one around. At first, the darkness may seem intimidating, even oppressive, but as your eyes adjust to the lack of light, you begin to see the shapes and shadows around you. What initially seemed terrifying transforms into a mysterious landscape full of life and meaning. Isolation works similarly. At first, you only feel loneliness, emptiness, and perhaps a sense of loss. But over time, if you allow yourself to be present in that space, you begin to see what truly lies within. Your fears, your desires, your dreams, and even the aspects of yourself that you have repressed or ignored. This process is essential for authenticity. In a world full of masks and external expectations, the greatest challenge is to be oneself. And to be oneself, you must first know who you truly are. In our society, we are constantly bombarded with messages about how we should be, what we should want, and how we should act. These expectations can cloud our perception of who we really are and what we truly desire. Isolation, by cutting off these external influences, allows you to reconnect with yourself without the interference of others. Isolation offers you a safe space to explore your thoughts and emotions without judgment. It is a time when you can be completely honest with yourself, free from the pressure of meeting the expectations of others. In this space, you can begin to dismantle the beliefs and patterns you've adopted without questioning and start to rebuild your identity from a place of authenticity. This is a difficult and often uncomfortable task, but it is essential for living a life that is truly aligned with your inner self. Isolation also gives you the opportunity to make peace with your shadows, those parts of yourself that you have rejected or hidden because they don't fit the image you wish to project. By being alone without the distractions of the outside world, you can start to accept these parts of yourself and see them as a source of strength rather than weakness. This process of acceptance and reconciliation is fundamental to authenticity, because only when you completely accept yourself can you live genuinely and without fear. Furthermore, isolation teaches you to trust your intuition and inner voice. In solitude, without the constant barrage of others' opinions, your intuition strengthens and your ability to make decisions from a place of inner wisdom sharpens. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in modern psychology, deeply understood the crucial role of loneliness in personal transformation. For Jung, loneliness was not simply a physical condition of being without company, but a deeper psychological experience. As he himself said, loneliness does not come from having no one around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. This type of loneliness, which can arise even in the middle of a crowd, is what truly drives inner growth and transformation. When we feel isolated, we often interpret this experience negatively, as a sign that something is wrong in our lives. However, from a Jungian perspective, those moments of deep loneliness may be indicators that we are being pushed toward a new understanding of ourselves, a new way of seeing the world and our place in it. Loneliness, in this sense, becomes a catalyst for change, an opportunity to step away from external influences and connect with our own inner truths. This type of loneliness is, in fact, creative solitude. It is the kind of isolation that great artists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders experience when they delve deep into their minds and emerge with new ideas, with new visions. Creative solitude is not a passive state of waiting or despair, but an active space of exploration and discovery. In this state, the mind is not occupied with the trivialities of daily life, but turns inward, toward the source of inspiration and inner wisdom. Artists, for example, often seek solitude to immerse themselves in their creative process without distractions. In this state of isolation, they are able to access and see parts of themselves that remain hidden in daily life. It is here where the deepest ideas arise, the most vivid images, and the most authentic expressions of their being. In this context, solitude is a space of creative freedom, where the limitations of social conventions and others' expectations dissolve, allowing the true essence of the person to manifest. Similarly, philosophers and spiritual leaders have found in solitude a source of clarity and vision. By withdrawing from the external world and the voices of others, they can hear their own inner voice with greater clarity. It is in solitude that some of the most revolutionary and transformative ideas in history have been conceived. In these moments of deep introspection, individuals confront the fundamental questions of existence and often emerge with answers that they could not have found amid the noise and confusion of daily life. Isolation not only facilitates the creative process, but also pushes people to question, reflect, and face uncomfortable yet necessary truths. When we are alone, without the distractions and noise of the external world, we are forced to confront our own shadows, insecurities, and contradictions. This process can be painful and challenging, but it is essential for personal growth. As we face these internal truths, we begin to free ourselves from the illusions and self-deceptions that have kept us tied to limiting patterns of behavior and thought. And it is in this process of confrontation and reflection that true transformation begins. You stop being the person you were, shaped by the expectations and opinions of others, and become someone new, someone more authentic and aligned with your true self. Solitude, then, is not just a state of isolation, but a process of rebirth. Like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis, you too can emerge from solitude as a fuller, more authentic version of yourself. This transformation that occurs in solitude is both internal and external. Internally, you become more aware of your true desires, fears, and aspirations. You become more honest with yourself and with others. Externally, this transformation manifests in how you relate to the world. You no longer feel the need to conform to others' expectations or follow paths that do not resonate with your inner being. Instead, you begin to live in a way that is in tune with your authentic self, making decisions that reflect your true values and purpose. Solitude also allows you to develop greater emotional and mental resilience. By facing your fears and internal challenges without the constant distraction or support of others, you become stronger and more capable of handling life's difficulties. You learn to trust yourself and your ability to navigate the ups and downs of life without relying on external validation. This inner strength is one of the most valuable rewards of solitude, as it allows you to live with a greater sense of autonomy and freedom. In his exploration of the human mind and the cosmos, Jung introduced the concept of synchronicity, an idea that has fascinated many people due to its profound meaning and its ability to connect seemingly unrelated events in a significant way. Synchronicity suggests that coincidences that appear random are not merely accidental but hold a deeper purpose and are interconnected in ways that escape rational understanding. This concept is closely related to the experience of isolation, which is often perceived as a meaningless state or mere emptiness. However, from the perspective of synchronicity, isolation can be seen as a crucial period in which the universe prepares the ground for something you have yet to see or fully understand. When the universe isolates you, whether through external circumstances or an internal need for withdrawal, it may be orchestrating events that have not yet come into your awareness. This isolation, though painful or bewildering in the moment, could be a prelude to a significant revelation, a personal transformation, or a change in direction in your life. Often, the greatest changes and discoveries in life do not occur amid activity and noise, but in those moments of apparent stillness and solitude, when the pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place in unexpected ways. In these moments of isolation, it is essential to trust that everything has a purpose. Although this purpose may not be immediately evident, life through the lens of synchronicity becomes a complex tapestry where every thread, even those that seem loose or out of place, has a crucial role to play. Isolation, then, is not simply an experience of disconnection, but a phase in which the soul prepares for a new understanding, a shift in perspective, or a new stage in life. Jung believed that the unconscious, a vast sea of symbols, archetypes, and psychological forces, was constantly communicating with us, not only through dreams or evident synchronicities, but also through solitude. In solitude, away from the distractions of the external world, we can hear these communications more clearly. It is as if isolation fine-tunes us, making us more receptive to the subtle messages the unconscious is trying to convey. This space of solitude thus becomes a fertile ground for the emergence of intuitions, ideas, and new ways of understanding our life and purpose. Therefore, isolation is not a meaningless void, but a space full of potential. It is in this space that the universe can communicate with you more directly, where you can receive revelations that would otherwise be obscured by the noise and chaos of daily life. It is a time of gestation in which something new is taking shape within you, even if you are not yet aware of it. Like a seed planted in the darkness of the earth, your inner being may be developing, growing in silence, preparing to emerge when conditions are right. This time of isolation also offers you the opportunity to see patterns and connections in your life that previously went unnoticed. Synchronicity manifests through these patterns, revealing that the events, encounters, and experiences you have had are not random but part of a greater design. Through solitude, you can begin to recognize these patterns, connect the dots, and understand the deeper meaning behind the experiences you have had. It is as if isolation allows you to step back, see the bigger picture, and appreciate the underlying coherence in your life. Moreover, isolation can help you redefine your relationship with time. In daily life, we are trapped in a linear perception of time, where events occur one after another in a predictable sequence. However, synchronicity suggests that time is more fluid and interconnected than we think. In solitude, you may experience a sense of eternity, where the past, present, and future seem to intertwine in mysterious ways. It is in these moments that you might feel that something from your past resonates deeply with something you are experiencing now, or that a premonition or intuition about the future is starting to take shape. The concept of the dark night of the soul is one of the deepest and most challenging within spirituality and psychology. Originally coined by St. John of the Cross, a 16th-century Spanish mystic, the dark night of the soul describes a period of intense spiritual crisis in which the person feels completely disconnected from God, their purpose, and even their own identity. This experience is deeply disturbing, as the person is engulfed in an overwhelming sense of emptiness and hopelessness, with no clear path forward. Carl Jung, in his exploration of the unconscious and the process of individuation, recognized the importance of this phenomenon and interpreted it as a crucial part of the journey toward the wholeness of being. From a Jungian perspective, the dark night of the soul is not just an episode of suffering, but a period of purification and spiritual renewal. It is a process in which the soul immerses itself in darkness to emerge stronger, purer, and more aligned with its true purpose. During this phase, the person is forced to confront their inner demons, the darkest and most repressed parts of their psyche. These demons, which may manifest as fears, insecurities, traumas, or hidden desires, are aspects of the shadow that have been ignored or rejected for a long time. In the dark night of the soul, these repressed parts of the psyche emerge forcefully, demanding to be confronted and processed. This process can be extremely painful as it requires the person to strip away old identities and face the parts of themselves they have denied or avoided. Isolation in this context becomes a catalyst for radical transformation. When a person is in the dark night of the soul, they often experience profound isolation, both internal and external. This isolation may seem like a form of punishment, but it is actually a necessary period of retreat, in which the person can focus entirely on their inner process. It is in this solitude where true purification begins, where the soul is cleansed of impurities and illusions that have clouded its vision and impeded its spiritual growth. The dark night of the soul is not a punishment, but a purification, similar to the alchemical process of calcination, where raw material is reduced to its most basic state before being transformed into something new and valuable. In the dark night of the soul, the individual is stripped of everything that is not essential, false identities and attachments that have kept them trapped in destructive or limiting patterns. This process is painful, as it involves a symbolic death of the old self, but it is necessary for the true self to emerge. This process of destruction and renewal is ultimately an act of profound love and grace. Although at the moment it may seem like everything is falling apart, like life is losing its meaning, in reality, the groundwork is being laid for a spiritual rebirth. By navigating this darkness, the person is freed from the chains of their old identities, beliefs, and behavior patterns, and is guided toward a new phase of their life, one that is more aligned with their true self. The dark night of the soul also has an evolutionary purpose in the process of individuation. Jung saw this process as a necessary part of psychological and spiritual development. Through this crisis, the person has the opportunity to integrate their shadow, to confront and reconcile with the parts of themselves they have denied or repressed. This integration is crucial for personal growth, as it allows the person to become a more complete and balanced being. Additionally, the dark night of the soul offers an opportunity to develop a deeper and more authentic relationship with the divine or with the universe. During this period, superficial beliefs and preconceived notions about the spiritual are questioned and often dismantled. In their place emerges a deeper and more personal understanding of the sacred, one that is based on direct experience and internal transformation. This new relationship with the divine is not based on dogmas or what others have taught, but on what has been lived and experienced in the depths of the soul. Carl Jung, in his profound exploration of the human mind, placed central importance on the unconscious, considering it not only as a repository of repressed memories and experiences, but as a rich and vital source of wisdom and guidance. For Jung, the unconscious was a vast ocean of symbols, archetypes, and psychic forces that, although generally hidden in daily life, could emerge and offer valuable insights when given the proper attention. Isolation, according to Jung, can act as a catalyst that forces us to pay attention to this often ignored inner realm amid the distractions and noise of daily life. When we are alone, without the constant stimulation of the external world, our minds naturally begin to turn inward. In this state of introspection, the unconscious has the opportunity to make itself heard with greater clarity. Suddenly, we may find answers to questions we didn't even know we had, revealing aspects of our psyche that have remained in the dark. Jung firmly believed that the unconscious communicates with us through symbols, dreams, and visions, offering insights that cannot be reached through logic and reason alone. These symbols and dreams, which may seem irrational or incomprehensible at first glance, actually contain profound messages that reflect our true nature and our deepest desires. During periods of isolation, when our attention is not scattered by the demands of the external world, these manifestations of the unconscious may become more frequent and vivid. It is as if, by being disconnected from external noise, our inner world becomes more accessible and more willing to reveal its secrets. This is an ideal time to pay attention to your dreams, your intuitions, and the symbols that appear in your life. Dreams, in particular, are a direct gateway to the unconscious. Jung described them as the royal road to the unconscious, as they manifest repressed contents and internal conflicts symbolically. Through dream analysis, we can access parts of ourselves that would otherwise remain hidden. In solitude, our dreams may become more intense, richer in meaning, offering clues about our emotional state, concerns, and aspirations. In addition to dreams, Jung also emphasized the importance of symbols and archetypes that appear in our lives, whether in dreams, visions, or even coincidences we experience. These symbols are not mere accidents or products of imagination, but expressions of the collective unconscious, a part of the human psyche that we share with all of humanity. Archetypes, such as the hero, the shadow, the anima, and the animus, among others, are universal patterns that structure our experience and emerge at key moments in our lives to guide us and help us understand ourselves and the world around us. Instead of fearing these moments when the unconscious makes itself present, it is crucial to see them as an opportunity to deepen your connection with your inner self. The unconscious may be trying to guide you, show you the way forward, and reveal truths that can change your life. By being attentive to these messages, we can gain greater understanding of ourselves and the challenges we face, allowing us to act more consciously and aligned with our true purpose. It is important to recognize that the wisdom of the unconscious does not always present itself in a direct or easily understandable manner. The messages from the unconscious are often wrapped in symbols and metaphors that require interpretation. This is where the work of self-analysis and, if necessary, the help of a therapist can be invaluable. By unraveling these symbols, we can discover patterns in our lives that have kept us trapped in repetitive cycles, or we can receive guidance on how to overcome obstacles that have been blocking our growth. Additionally, isolation and solitude can facilitate the practice of meditation and other forms of deep introspection, allowing for more direct access to the unconscious. During meditation, for example, we can reach states of consciousness where the internal dialogue is silenced, and the unconscious can emerge with greater clarity. These practices not only help us understand ourselves better, but also provide tools to integrate the contents of the unconscious into our conscious life, thus fostering greater psychological balance and well-being. Therefore, isolation is not just a retreat from the external world, but an invitation to a more intimate and meaningful dialogue with our inner world. Isolation can manifest in our lives in two main ways: as voluntary retreat or as forced isolation. Although both types of isolation may seem similar on the surface, as they involve separation from the external world, their origins and the experiences they generate are fundamentally different. Understanding this distinction is crucial to making the most of the growth potential each type of isolation can offer. Voluntary retreat is a conscious choice, a deliberate decision to step away from the bustle of daily life to seek inner peace, spiritual enlightenment, or a greater degree of self-knowledge. This type of isolation is typically associated with spiritual and religious practices, such as those of monks, hermits, or meditators who withdraw to remote places or monasteries to dedicate themselves to contemplation, prayer, and introspection. In these circumstances, the individual separates from the external world not as a means of escape, but as a way to connect more deeply with the divine, their inner essence, or universal truths. Voluntary retreat is seen by many as a path to transcendence, an opportunity to shed worldly distractions and focus on what truly matters. In these moments, the person immerses themselves in a state of introspection that allows them to examine their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs without the interference of social pressures or external expectations. This type of isolation is generally sought during periods of transition, or when the person feels a deep need to reconnect with their purpose or find answers to existential questions. On the other hand, forced isolation is one imposed by circumstances and often comes unexpectedly and undesirably. Examples include isolation caused by loss, illness, a global pandemic, or any situation that forces us to separate from others without having chosen it. This type of isolation may seem more difficult to manage, as it often comes with feelings of frustration, helplessness, and despair. The person facing forced isolation may feel they have lost control over their life and are being pushed into a state of solitude against their will. However, Carl Jung taught us that although we do not always choose our circumstances, we can choose how we respond to them. This perspective is key to transforming forced isolation into an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth. When we find ourselves in an unwanted isolation, we can choose to resist, which often generates more suffering, or we can accept it and explore how we can use that time for our benefit. This acceptance does not imply resignation, but a willingness to work with what life has given us, seeking ways to turn the challenge into an enriching experience. In both cases, whether it's voluntary retreat or forced isolation, isolation can lead us to a place of deep reflection and self-knowledge. The main difference lies in the attitude with which the experience is approached. In a voluntary retreat, the person enters isolation with a clear intention to seek something, whether it be peace, wisdom, or spiritual connection, while in forced isolation, the challenge is to find meaning and purpose amid an imposed situation. The key to navigating both types of isolation is not to resist the process, but to accept what is and allow isolation to do its work on us. When we resist isolation, we try to fill the void with distractions, distancing ourselves from the lessons that could arise in that space of solitude. However, when we accept isolation and view it as an opportunity, we can begin to uncover aspects of ourselves that we did not previously know, develop greater resilience, and deepen our understanding of the world and our lives. Voluntary isolation, with its focus on inner seeking, teaches us the importance of silence, calm, and connection to the transcendent. It shows us that by stepping away from external demands, we can find answers and clarity that are inaccessible amidst the noise and haste. This type of isolation is a powerful tool for spiritual growth, as it allows us to align with our deepest truths and with the natural rhythm of life. On the other hand, forced isolation teaches us the importance of adaptation and acceptance. It challenges us to find balance and meaning in difficult situations and to develop an inner strength that enables us to navigate life's storms with grace. While this type of isolation can be painful, it is also an opportunity to reevaluate our priorities, let go of what no longer serves us, and emerge with a new perspective and a greater capacity to face adversity. In modern society, solitude and isolation are often viewed with suspicion and fear. We are conditioned to perceive silence as uncomfortable and lack of social interaction as a sign that something is wrong. We live in a world that values constant activity, superficial connection, and instant entertainment, which keeps us away from introspection and self-knowledge. However, Carl Jung warned us about the dangers of constantly fleeing from solitude and not facing our inner demons. The resistance to isolation has profound consequences for our emotional, psychological, and spiritual well-being. The rejection of solitude and the constant search for external distractions can lead us to a life of superficiality. When we avoid being alone with our thoughts, we are avoiding confronting aspects of ourselves that may be uncomfortable or challenging, but are essential for our personal growth. This rejection of introspection prevents us from truly knowing ourselves, which in turn leaves us trapped in self-destructive behavior patterns. By seeking solace in external distractions, whether in technology, work, social media, or even superficial relationships, we are actually evading the true inner work needed to achieve authenticity and inner peace. This type of evasion can manifest in many ways. Some people may immerse themselves in frantic activities, filling every moment of their day with tasks and commitments to avoid silence and introspection. Others may constantly seek external validation, relying on the approval and attention of others to feel valuable rather than cultivating an internal and genuine self-esteem. It is also common to resort to addictions or self-destructive habits, such as excessive substance use, technology abuse, or escapism through fantasy, to escape the difficult emotions and uncomfortable thoughts that arise in solitude. However, by resisting isolation, we are also resisting the process of individuation that Jung described as essential for personal development. Individuation is the process by which we integrate the different parts of our psyche, including the shadows we have repressed or ignored. By avoiding solitude and opportunities for introspection, we are avoiding this confrontation with our shadows. The shadow, according to Jung, is that hidden part of ourselves that contains our fears, repressed desires, and aspects of our personality that we do not want to accept. Integrating the shadow is a crucial step toward wholeness and authenticity. When we resist isolation and the work of integrating our shadow, we not only prolong our suffering, but also slow our spiritual and psychological growth. The shadow does not disappear simply because we ignore it. In fact, the more we avoid it, the more powerful it becomes. It can manifest unconsciously in our actions, sabotage our relationships, and perpetuate cycles of destructive behavior. This is the price of not facing solitude and not doing the necessary internal work for our development. Moreover, resistance to isolation and avoidance of solitude prevent us from experiencing the transformative benefits these states can offer. Although uncomfortable at first, isolation can be an opportunity for deep reflection, clarification of our values, and rediscovery of our passions and purposes. Solitude allows us to step away from external influences and connect with our true essence. It is in solitude that we can hear our inner voice without the distractions and opinions of others that often cloud our judgment. When we finally stop resisting isolation and allow ourselves to be alone with our thoughts, we begin to discover aspects of ourselves that we had never noticed before. We start to see our emotions with greater clarity, recognize behavior patterns that no longer serve us, and find new ways to relate to ourselves and others. Throughout history, isolation has been a crucial tool for the development of great thinkers, artists, and spiritual leaders. Far from being an obstacle, these periods of solitude have become sources of deep inspiration, mental clarity, and personal growth. Through isolation, these figures have been able to connect with their deepest thoughts, develop revolutionary ideas, and produce works that have left an indelible mark on humanity. One of the most notable examples is Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, whose work has profoundly influenced modern philosophy, literature, and psychology. Nietzsche spent long periods of his life in solitude, especially in the mountains of Switzerland, where he sought refuge from the pressures of academic life and the illnesses that plagued him. It was during these periods of retreat that Nietzsche developed many of his most influential ideas, such as the notion of the Übermensch and the death of God. In his isolation, he found the clarity and strength to question the social and religious norms of his time and to propose new ways of understanding human life and its potential. For Nietzsche, solitude was not just a means of escaping the noise of the world, but a necessary condition for achieving clarity of thought and originality. Another example is Henry David Thoreau, the American writer, philosopher, and naturalist known for his work Walden, a testament to his experiment in living in isolation in the woods of Walden Pond near Concord, Massachusetts. Thoreau retreated to Walden Pond with the intention of simplifying his life and living in harmony with nature, away from the distractions of modern life. In his isolation, Thoreau not only found inner peace, but also discovered the essence of life by stepping away from the superficial needs imposed by society. His work, Walden, is a profound reflection on simplicity, self-sufficiency, and the importance of living according to one's own values, rather than conforming to external expectations. Through his retreat, Thoreau connected with his inner self and with nature, producing a work that continues to inspire generations to value introspection and conscious living. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist and psychiatrist, also turned to isolation as an integral part of his creative and self-discovery process. Jung built a tower in Bollingen by Lake Zurich, where he regularly retreated to reflect, meditate, and work on his writings. In this isolated setting, Jung was able to explore his own unconscious and develop many of his most important theories about the human psyche, including the theory of archetypes and the concept of individuation. For Jung, isolation not only offered him a respite from his clinical practice and the demands of the external world, but also provided a sacred space to delve into the depths of his mind and connect with what he considered greater and universal forces operating in the collective unconscious. It was in Bollingen that Jung encountered many of the visions and dreams that would later form the basis of his most influential work. These examples demonstrate that isolation, far from being an obstacle, can be a source of inspiration and personal and spiritual growth. When figures like Nietzsche, Thoreau, and Jung embraced isolation as part of their journey, they discovered new ways of seeing the world and new ways of being. Their solitude allowed them to shed external influences and connect with their deepest essence, enabling them to produce ideas and works that resonated with universal and timeless truths. In a world that often bombards us with constant stimuli and demands, it is easy to underestimate the value of isolation. However, as these great thinkers show us, solitude can be a powerful ally on the path to self-knowledge and creativity. Isolation provides a space for deep introspection, where one can explore the most hidden layers of the psyche and discover truths that would otherwise remain buried under the layers of daily life. In summary, isolation is not just a retreat from the world, but an opportunity to reconnect with oneself and with deeper sources of wisdom and inspiration. Through solitude, great thinkers have found the clarity to see beyond the conventions and limitations of their time, and have been able to contribute ideas and works that have transformed how we understand the world and our place in it. By following their example, we can learn to embrace isolation as an essential part of our own process of personal and spiritual growth, and use it as a tool to achieve greater clarity, creativity, and authenticity in our lives. Isolation is not easy. It is a challenge, a trial that can feel endless and painful. But if you view it through the lens of Carl Jung, you might see it as an essential part of your journey toward wholeness and individuation. It is a time that the universe gives you to find your true path, to face yourself without the distractions of the external world. Instead of resisting it, what if you embraced it? If you saw isolation not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for growth and transformation, it is in those moments of solitude that you can discover who you truly are, and when you emerge, you will be stronger, wiser, and more in tune with your purpose.